last column was about Herschel Walker, who is a black man who's being elevated as a candidate from Georgia for the United States Senate. And the problem with Herschel Walker is that, there are two things about him. One, he's black, great. Two, he's a moron.
Oh my God, John, you're calling a candidate for the U.S. Senate. Come on, man. You could just
be more delicate about it.
Yeah, please be more delicate.
He knows no more about the issues of the day than either of my children. Nothing. He doesn't know anything.
Okay.
He has no interest, and more to the point, doesn't even seem to be aware that he is supposed to indicate the interest. I have no idea what his IQ is, but he clearly is hopelessly, glaringly unqualified to be a senator in any sense. There's no learning curve possible. Doesn't even know how he's supposed to fake it. Just no blessed idea. And I find it offensive because what's basically going on is that they're putting him against a Democratic black incumbent. And the idea is to hope that enough black voters will be swayed by his erstwhile celebrity and his blackness to vote him in so that there'll be a Republican. Because to the extent that he has views at all, they are Republican views. And therefore to get rid of poor Raphael Warnock. But it's insulting, to put somebody up there who is clearly unqualified solely because of the color of his skin. And yet these are the Republicans who think that we're supposed to be getting past race and evaluating people according to the content of their character and being quote unquote colorblind. It's just the expression these days is it's not a good look. And that was my last piece.
Well, you said that with such relish, John. You took such pleasure in calling this man a moron. And you're insulted. This is the thing that I find is interesting. And a number of thoughts occur to me. One is, how could he possibly have secured the nomination if he's such an idiot? You say you're insulted, and I assume that means you think that the Republican Party has so little respect for the intelligence of black people that they pander for their votes by appointing this, quote, moron whose main qualification is his blackness in an effort to unseat another black man, because that's the opponent on the other side, and Georgia has a significant black vote. Okay. I mean,
that is what I mean. And I want people watching or listening to this to understand, because I have such an imperious manner about me. I'm not saying he's a moron because he's not an intellectual. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that this is somebody whose professed statements, professed views about the issues of the day are so utterly uninformed that you're shocked that he's been put before any kind of audience. And more to the point, he doesn't even seem to know it. He seems rather proud of himself. He's utterly out of his element.
Give us some examples. I know that I should be somehow, I feel, John, like I should be defending Herschel Walker here, but that's a heavy lift. Why don't you give us some examples of his ineptness?
Well, for example, he was asked about how he felt about Biden's bipartisan infrastructure bill. And his answer, with the microphones in his face, was, well, what I like to do is look at it and something.
Oh, yeah,
and
I
stuff.
heard that.
That's what he says.
Oh, but literally, and something and stuff.
Yes, that's
quote
what he
unquote.
Said. That's actually what he said. And something and stuff. And he didn't know. I mean, he genuinely doesn't know. You're supposed to at least be able to fake an answer. And you're not supposed to get offended, as he did after that he was being pressed on it, saying it's just not fair. I haven't looked at the details, as if it's wrong to expect him to read the news. Or another example is he's under the impression, I didn't put this in the piece, that what's going on with climate change and what needs to be done here is a matter of that the United States has the best air in the world. We've got the best air. China has the worst air. And what happens is that because of wind patterns, our good air blows over to China and there's not enough room for the good air. And so the bad air comes here. And this is what he said about our problems with pollution. And all of this is with not only a straight face, but a certain kind of childlike pride that he came up with an answer at all. just that person shouldn't be a senator.
I just had an idea. I'm going to make the case for Herschel. I'm going to stipulate everything that you said about his competency.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably debatable around the margin, but it's probably solid, at its base. I mean, he looks like he's a lightweight, a term that we have used here at the Glitch Show from time to time.
And in this case, there can be no doubt. Yes.
But here's what I want to say. I want to say that it's probably complicated, and the nature of his appeal, he can't be a threat unless he has some appeal, and I think we have to reckon with that. I mean, if at the end of the day he's simply not carrying anybody's message, he'll be trounced in the election by a guy who's a pastor of a church and organizer and activist and a very capable man who, and we don't have anything to worry about. If indeed he has a chance of winning, there must be something going on. So he's signaling or being an avatar for something. He's representing something. And that's the thing to kind of try to focus on. You put your finger on it, I think, with respect to Trump. Trump's out there acting an ass. Trump's out there saying ridiculous stuff. Trump has all this baggage. And yet the Christian right flock to him, and he gets fucking elected.
Mm-hmm.
Trump is Trump, and he's an idiot, he's a moron, you can go into your thing about Trump, but the fact is that the thing that he represented or embodied was a part of the democracy. It was a part of this. It's a part of the political situation. That's why I ask about Walker's position on social issues. I don't know what he thinks about the border. I don't know how he talks about capitalism, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know what he says about who's a woman, and those kinds of things about CRT in the schools, about the 1619 Project, about those kinds of things. Is he a Christian? I mean, and I'm not, please, I'm not advocating any kind of Christian nationalism. I'm just saying that could be a part of a package. The man might pray. If he prays, some people are going to really be responsive to that, regardless of what his IQ is. So I think candidate selection and candidate success are the things to focus on here. What was going on in the Republican Party that led to this? Perhaps it's exactly as cynical as you say. Big money guys in Georgia politics on the Republican side said, the reason we want this guy and he wins the primary because he's got the big money guys behind him is we're going to play him like a puppet and he's going to be our blackface emblem. That could be the story. But it might be a Tea Party kind of story where activist zealots who are extremely pro-life and extremely, anti-woke fastened on to this guy as the guy that was carrying their water for him. Anyway, I've been talking too long. But you see what I'm getting at, John? That's
I do. And I think what has offended me so much about him is that I don't think that there is any more of a story in his case. He's not particularly about anything. Like, for example, I see how you're casting him as perhaps very Christian. As
I don't know that for a fact. I just want to be clear.
Know.
I don't know that for a fact.
He might have this whole message about being born again or about how we need to go back to God. But actually, he doesn't. That doesn't seem to be his thing. If anything, the only message he seems to have is that he had certain mental troubles about 20 years ago, and he claims to have gotten past these sorts of demons. He's been borderline violent, given to rages, often against women. I don't think he's on record as having actually hurt anyone, but he has scared people. He had some issues with that, and he's come back from it. But to be honest, he doesn't talk about it in especially, enlightening or moving way. But that's the quirk about him. Other than that, he's somebody who played football very well 30 years ago, who is being elevated because, he would look good on a T-shirt. I really don't see the there that you can even kind of hesitantly identify in a Trump. He's just a doll. And that's not how Black people are supposed to be represented.